Sensing the World, a sensory processing symposium brought to you by LIFE's OT team, namely Kim Badencourt, Donna Evans, Melly Flores, Maria Mettler, Angela Olson, and Jamie Sullivan. Sensory processing is defined as the organization of sensory information from the body and the external world that allows a person to interact effectively with their physical and social environments. Sensory processing disorder, on the other hand, refers to the differences individuals face where their brains do not process sensory information adequately. They may either be over-responsive or under-responsive to sensory stimuli. Contrary to popular belief, there are more than 5 senses. The most common are sight or visual, hearing or auditory, smell or olfactory, touch or tactile, and taste or gustatory. But what about the other 3? In this section, we will be talking about the common 5 senses as well as the 3 forgotten ones, including balance or vestibular, proprioception or body awareness, and interoception or internal sense. We will be discussing how the 8 sensory systems function using the following format. First, we will identify the 8 sensory systems, recognize signs of over and under responsiveness to sensory stimuli with examples, understand the difference between sensory responses versus behavioral responses, and apply this knowledge into real-life scenarios. It is important to note that sensory responses are different from other behavioral responses. Sensory responses are usually involuntary and neurological, resulting from feeling overwhelmed by the sensory stimuli present. On the other hand, other behavioral responses are typically purposeful, aimed at achieving a specific outcome, such as gaining attention, gaining access to items or preferred activities, and avoiding or escaping unpleasant demands or activities. Lastly, we will also go over treatment strategies using sensory integration principles to address the child's sensory processing difficulties that led a child to a sensory meltdown, so we can help the child calm down and be ready to learn and be successful in the classroom and all environments.
The sense of vision allows us to receive and interpret visual information such as light, color, movement, shapes, and spatial relationships. It plays a critical role in learning, safety, coordination, attention, and social interaction. Vision helps us understand our environment, recognize faces and objects, and guide movement and posture. For someone who has visual hypersensitivity, visual input is experienced as too intense. Individuals may be bothered by bright lights, busy environments, movement, or visual clutter. They may avoid eye contact, become easily distracted, cover their eyes, or feel overwhelmed in visually busy spaces. Someone who is under-responsive or hyposensitive to visual input may not register visual input strongly enough. These individuals may seek visual stimulation, stare at lights or moving objects, miss visual details, have difficulty locating items, or appear unaware of visual cues in their environment. Sensory-based responses occur when the brain has difficulty processing visual input. Bright lights, cluttered spaces, movement, or visual details may cause overwhelm, avoidance, squinting, difficulty focusing, or fatigue. These responses are automatic and improve with visual supports and environmental modifications. Whereas behavior-based responses occur when visual information is processed appropriately and the response is a choice, influenced by attention, motivation, or learned behavior. These improve with clear expectations, structure, and reinforcement. Understanding the difference helps someone respond with the right support rather than misinterpreting sensory needs as intentional behavior.
Maria, let's put the puzzle piece together of a lion. Looks like you might need help. Here, how about we start with one piece? Nice job putting the corner in. Here's another piece. It's another corner. Nice job, Maria. Good job putting it together.
Go.
All right, Kim, in 5 seconds, we're going to be all done with the ball, and we're going to do our puzzle. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. You can give me the ball. You can give me the ball. Stop.
Treatment for someone with visual processing needs includes support focusing on helping individuals process visual information in a way that promotes comfort and participation. Strategies may include reducing visual clutter, adjusting lighting, using high contrast or simplified materials, and organizing environments for clear visual cues. Visual supports such as schedules, labels, and boundaries help reduce overload and improve understanding. Occupational therapy may also address visual attention, tracking, and visual motor integration through structured activities. The goal is to decrease visual overwhelm, improve focus, and support successful engagement in daily activities.
The olfactory system, also known as our sense of smell. The olfactory system is responsible for processing smell. The olfactory bulb is located in the most forward part of the brain, on the bottom side of the brain. The olfactory bulb transmits smell information from the nose to the brain and is thus necessary for a proper sense of smell. The bulb has 4 functions. First, it's responsible for discriminating among odors, enhancing detection of odors, filtering out many background odors, and allowing higher brain areas related to arousal and attention to modify the detection and/or the discrimination of odors. This means that odors can either calm, alert, or overwhelm. Overresponsive or hypersensitivity to olfactory input refers to someone who has heightened sensitivity to odors, responding more intensely, quicker, and/or longer to odors that may lead to feelings of overwhelm. In this example, we see a child losing her appetite due to the food odor. Some kids receiving feeding therapy may be suffering from overresponsiveness to odors, which may be one of the reasons they avoid certain foods, limiting their diet. Some of these food odors may seem insignificant to us, but noxious to them. Smelling these types of odors can lead to child sensory dysregulation. On the other hand, underresponsiveness or hyposensitivity to olfactory input refers to someone who responds less intensely to olfactory stimuli, and responses may be muted or delayed. In this example, we see a child smelling her freshly laundered blanket, which smells more intensely than a blanket that was washed days ago, giving her more sensory information to register to her brain. Examples of sensory and behavior regarding the olfactory system. In these two pictures, we see two incidents of food refusals. Under sensory, the child is refusing and gagging over the lunch presented to him due to the overpowering smell of the food he is served. This is an example of a child with an overresponsive to olfactory input, in this case, the smell of food. His heightened sensitivity to odors is so significant that it caused a fight or flight response in the form of gagging. Can you think of a consumer you work with that may have the same sensory difficulty? Have you seen sensory responses of gagging, upset, or running away from food by consumers during snack or lunch? For the picture designated as behavior, the child is avoiding or refusing his lunch to gain access to the TV. The child is refusing to eat because he would rather watch TV than eat his meal. Treatment strategies for overresponsive to smells. First, we can modify the environment for our child, such as using fragrance-free cleaning and personal care products, and ensuring that there is good ventilation in rooms by opening windows in the room. We can also teach coping techniques and provide sensory supports by teaching the child how to cover their nose or use tissues when encountering strong odors, and by providing preferred scents such as using essential oils to mask unpreferred smells. We can also collaborate with the OTs for gradual desensitization using controlled exposure to noxious odors, pairing olfactory exposure with calming input using deep pressure activities or sensory tools providing deep pressure, and using calming scents as part of the sensory diet, such as lavender, chamomile, or preferred calming scents. For olfactory under-responsiveness, the goal to treatment is to increase awareness and responsiveness to olfactory stimuli and support functional participation in self-care, eating, and social routines. First, we can work on increasing awareness and responsiveness to olfactory input via olfactory exploration by using strong, pleasant scents, such as aromatic items during activities such as peppermint or vanilla, introducing scented play materials, such as using scented markers and Play-Doh, and creating a smell station with safe items, such as coffee grounds, herbs, and essential oils. Secondly, we can also pair smell with functional tasks, such as adding scented soap during hand washing and encouraging participation in baking or cooking with strong smell ingredients, such as garlic and cinnamon, by having the individual smell spices before adding them to food. We can also modify the environment by diffusing essential oils in treatment spaces, keeping in mind allergies and other safety concerns. Also using scented candles or air fresheners for calming or alerting environments. Fourth, we can combine olfactory with other sensory inputs such as pairing scents with visual or tactile cues. For example, smelling lavender while touching a soft fabric or blanket. Lastly, when using these strategies, let us ensure the child's safety by avoiding overwhelming scents or known allergens, monitoring for adverse reactions such as headache or nausea, and using non-toxic and child-safe materials.
The sense of hearing. The auditory sense allows us to receive and process sounds from our environment, such as voices, music, and warning signals. It helps us understand language, stay safe, focus, and regulate our emotions and behavior. How the brain interprets sound can vary from person to person, especially for individuals with sensory processing differences. When someone is overstimulated, everyday sounds such as voices, alarms, or background noise may feel overwhelming or even painful. This can lead to behaviors like covering ears, avoiding noisy spaces, increased anxiety, or difficult focusing. On the other hand, individuals who are understimulated may seek out sound. They may hum, make noises, turn the volume up, or have difficulty responding to verbal cues because they need stronger auditory input to stay regulated.
Black, blue, red, yellow, green, purple, count ROS. I want red, white, pink, orange, black, blue, red, yellow, green, purple, count.
Sensory versus behavior, auditory processing. When a response is sensory-based, the brain is having difficulty processing sound. The reaction is automatic and not intentional. Loud or unexpected noises may cause distress, covering ears, avoidance, shutdown, or difficulty following verbal directions. The individual is responding to how their nervous system perceives sounds, not making a choice. When a response is behavior-based, the individual has the ability to process the sound but is choosing how to respond. The behavior may be influenced by motivation, attention, or learned patterns rather than sensory overload or under-responsiveness. A key difference is that sensory responses improve with regulation and environmental supports, such as reducing noise, providing headphones, or using visual cues. Behavioral responses improve with consistent expectations, teaching, and reinforcement. Understanding whether a response is a sensory or behavioral helps teams choose the most effective supports and avoid misinterpreting sensory needs as intentional misbehavior. Occupational therapy addresses auditory processing by helping individuals regulate how they respond to sound in their environment. Treatment may include environmental modifications, such as reducing background noise, using quiet spaces, or adding visual supports to decrease reliance on auditory input. Therapists may introduce calming or alerting sounds, rhythmic activities, or structured listening experiences to support regulation and attention. Individuals are also taught coping and self-advocacy strategies, such as requesting breaks, using headphones, or identifying sounds that help them feel calm and focused. The goal of auditory intervention is to improve participation, comfort, and functional engagement across daily activities. The sense of taste allows us to detect and interpret flavors such as sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. It plays an important role in eating, nutrition, safety, and self-regulation, and works closely with smell and oral touch. Differences in how taste is processed can influence food preferences, tolerance of flavors, and mealtime participation. Sense of taste, over-responsive versus under-responsive. When an individual is over-responsive, taste input is experienced as too intense. Individuals may avoid certain flavors or textures, be very selective with foods, gag easily, resist new foods, or become distressed during meals. When an individual is under-responsive, hyposensitive, the taste input is not registered strongly enough. Individuals may seek bold or intense flavors, prefer spicy, sour, or crunchy foods, overstuff their mouths, or chew on non-food items to get more sensory input. Understanding these differences helps guide supportive strategies and reduces stress around eating and meal times.
There. All right. Why are you putting Tabasco on your rice cake?
Because Tabasco is good.
And
Why is it so hard to get out?
is it empty?
No, it's just super hard to get out.
Sensory-based responses occur when the nervous system has difficulty processing taste. Reactions are automatic and may include food refusal, gagging, strong preferences, or distress with certain flavors or textures. These responses improve with sensory supports and gradual exposure. Behavior-based responses occur when taste is processed appropriately and food choices or refusals are influenced by preference, control, or learned behavior. Sense of taste treatment. Treatment focuses on helping individuals feel safe and regulated with taste input. Occupational therapy may use gradual exposure to new flavors, sensory-based feeding strategies, and play-based food exploration to reduce stress and build tolerance. Interventions often include pairing preferred and non-preferred foods, supporting oral motor skills, and creating predictable mealtime routines. Environmental and emotional supports, such as calm settings, positive language, and respecting sensory limits are essential. The goal is to increase comfort, participation, and nutritional variety without pressure or force.
The sense of touch.
Mom, nice, Nathan. Bells are
People that are over-responsive to touch show a predisposition to respond too much, too soon, or for too long to sensory stimuli that most people find quite tolerable. Warn the person you are about to touch them. Hugs may be uncomfortable. Gradually introduce textures. Allow them to attempt to complete activities independently, as physical assistance may be aversive. For example, brushing hair and washing their hair. Always approach them from the front. Turn clothes inside out so there is no seam. Remove any tags or labels. People who are under-responsive to touch are the ones that hold hands tightly or crash intentionally into things. They enjoy weighted blankets, joint compressions, using light touch, cold water play, and chewies if they chew on clothing and inedible objects.
Your turn, stick it. Hold on a second, Ben. This is Oliver. Oliver's cell. Ben's cell. Take it.
When we look at sense of touch, it's important to separate sensory needs from behavior. Sensory responses are automatic nervous system reactions to touch input. Things like textures, temperature, pressure, or unexpected contact. If a child avoids certain fabrics, pulls away from light touch, or overreacts to messy play, their brain may be interpreting touch as uncomfortable or even threatening. They're not choosing this response. It's how their sensory system is wired. Behavior, on the other hand, is intentional and goal-directed. A child might refuse an activity, push materials away, or seek adult attention because it gets the desired outcome, like avoiding work or gaining control. The key difference is that behavior can change quickly with motivation, rewards, or consequences, while sensory responses are more consistent across settings and harder to turn off. If touch reactions happen across many environments and don't improve with incentives, it's likely sensory. If the response changes depending on the situation or audience, behavior may be driving it. Often both exist together, and understanding which is leading helps us choose the right supports.
Treatment for touch-sensitive individuals. Deep pressure, such as weighted blankets or heavy work, can be calming. These activities include wall pushes, wheelbarrow walks, and carrying heavy objects. Choose soft, seamless clothing or cut off tags. Provide warnings before touch. Offer messy play in controlled ways through sensory bins. Provide movement breaks before focused tasks. Did you know? The skin is your body's largest organ and contains more than 4 million sensory receptors. The sense of balance, also known as the vestibular system. When people have over-responsive vestibular systems, their brain gets overwhelmed by movement, leading to dizziness, fear, or nausea from activities like swinging, sliding, or spinning, causing avoidance of playgrounds or fear of sudden changes in position, such as tilting backwards. They feel unsafe off the ground. They refuse PE or running activities with unpredictable motions. People with under-responsive vestibular systems, their brain needs a lot of movement to register balance. These kids are sensory seeking. They demonstrate constant movement, fidgeting, rocking, swinging, spinning. They would rather run, skip, or jump than walk. They appear clumsy or demonstrate poor body awareness. They demonstrate difficulty staying seated or appear impulsive.
The vestibular system tells us where our head and body are in space and helps with balance, movement, posture, alertness, and feeling grounded. When this system isn't processing input well, what we see can look like behavior, but it's actually sensory. A sensory-based vestibular challenge happens when the child's nervous system is over or under responding to movement. For example, a child may avoid swings, become dizzy easily, constantly move, crash into things, or seem unsafe during movement. These responses are automatic and driven by the brain trying to regulate itself, not a choice. In contrast, behavioral responses are purposeful and influenced by motivation, learning history, or environmental expectations. For example, a child may refuse playground equipment to avoid a non-preferred task or seek movement because it's fun or gets attention, not because their nervous system requires it. The key difference is consistency and regulation. Sensory-based vestibular behaviors are consistent across settings and help regulate the child and don't improve just by asking the child to stop, while behavioral choices vary by context and consequences and are more flexible and responsive to external cues. When we address vestibular needs with appropriate movement input, the behavior often improves because the sensory system is finally getting what it needs.
Treatment ideas for balance activities. For those with under-responsive vestibular systems, our sensory seekers, provide a sensory diet of planned activities to meet the need of input. Talk to their OT. Offer structured input such as trampolines, swings, spinning toys, and crash pads. Incorporate movement breaks such as running, exercises, and playground time. Provide calming input such as deep pressure or heavy work following movement to help ground them. For those with over-responsive vestibular systems, our sensory avoiders, start with slow, predictable movements, gently swinging with feet touching the ground, sitting on a therapy ball with their feet on the floor, or calming activities such as yoga.
Proprioception is the body's sense of position and movement. It comes from input in the muscles, joints, and connective tissues and tells us where our body parts are and how much force to use during movement. Proprioception plays a critical role in posture, body awareness, coordination, motor planning, and self-regulation. It allows us to move efficiently without constantly watching our body, adjust pressure during tasks, and feel grounded in space. For individuals with sensory processing differences, proprioceptive input may be experienced as either too little or difficult to interpret. Some individuals may appear clumsy, use too much or too little force, seek heavy work, crash into objects, or have difficulty sitting still. Others may appear fatigued, slouched, or unsure of body position. For someone who is under-responsive to proprioceptive input, this input is not registered strongly enough. Individuals may seek deep pressure, heavy lifting, crashing, or tight squeezes. They may have difficulty grading force, appear restless, or constantly move to feel their body. Someone who is over-responsive or hypersensitive to proprioceptive input may feel uncomfortable or unsafe moving. These individuals may avoid certain movements, resist joint compression, appear tense, or move cautiously. Sensory-based responses for proprioceptive input occur when the nervous system needs more or clearer proprioceptive input to feel organized and regulated. These responses improve with movement, deep pressure, and heavy work, rather than with consequences or rewards.
Put the candy cane on the house. Put the door on the house.
Occupational therapy supports proprioceptive processing through activities that provide deep pressure and resistance, such as pulling, pushing, carrying, squeezing, climbing, and weight bearing. Proprioceptive input is often calming and organizing and helps improve attention, body awareness, and participation in daily activities.
Finally, we have the forgotten sense, interoception. Interoception is basically all of the senses that we feel inside our body. Think of your inner organs, like your heart, stomach, and bladder. These organs communicate to your brain when you are hot or cold, hungry, thirsty, tired, or need to go to the bathroom. This sense is incredibly important in helping us interpret our emotions. Think about how your body feels after being outside during the summer. Your heart starts to beat faster, and your body starts to sweat, causing your internal organs to become dehydrated. Your interoceptors takes this information from the organs in your torso and communicates it to your brain. Your brain converts these feelings into emotions and actions. Your brain may say, "Hey, I'm roasting in here. Give me some water." Once you drink enough water, your blood vessels get bigger, your heart rate slows down, and the organs inside your torso become hydrated. Here's another example. You've been on campus at LIFE for 6 hours after waking up in the morning, and your stomach starts to growl. The nerves in your stomach tell your brain that it's empty. Your brain says, "I'm hungry, give me some food." Many of our kiddos on campus don't have a strong sense of interoception. We often see our consumers have an increase in behaviors, seemingly at random. This could be a result of the brain not receiving proper information from their internal body. Maybe the brain doesn't know that the bladder is fully extended or full of fluid and they need to use the bathroom. Maybe the inside of the body is overheated because of the weather or because of a fever. Maybe the stomach is cramping because it's been empty for too long or their blood sugar is low and they need to eat something. Those with overresponsive interoceptors are highly sensitive to internal body signals such as hunger, thirst, heartbeat, or bathroom needs, which may lead to anxiety and big emotions. Hunger, needing the toilet, and other internal shifts may trigger anxiety and mood swings. They may become hangry. These kiddos then become preoccupied with internal sensations, making it hard for them to focus on other tasks. They may have meltdowns from seemingly small changes. They may frequently feel that they need the restroom. Those with underresponsive interoceptors demonstrate difficulty noticing or interpreting internal body signals such as hunger, thirst, needing to use the toilet, pain, or emotional states. They may not feel hungry until they are extremely weak, leading to undereating, or may not feel full, leading to overeating. They may not feel the need to use the bathroom, resulting in accidents. They may demonstrate a high tolerance for pain. They may not recognize fatigue until they are exhausted. These kiddos have difficulty identifying emotions or knowing what they need to do to calm themselves. They may not notice temperature extremes and may not dress appropriately for the weather or may play in the heat until they are overheated.
When we discuss interoception, we're referring to the body's ability to sense internal signals such as hunger, thirst, heart rate, breathing, pain, bathroom needs, and emotions. From a sensory or interoception-based perspective, challenges occur when the brain misinterprets or does not register these internal cues accurately. A child may not notice when they are hungry, fatigued, anxious, or need to use the bathroom. Because these body signals are not recognized early, emotional responses may appear sudden or disproportionate. From a behavioral or response-based perspective, the child does experience the internal sensation but lacks the skills to respond in an effective or appropriate way. Behavior reflects when the child does in response to these sensations. For example, a child may feel anxious but respond with a meltdown instead of asking for help, or may recognize hunger but ignore it during play. These behaviors are often influenced by learning history, environmental demands, expectations, and available coping skills. The key takeaway is a sensory issue means the child cannot feel or interpret the internal signals, while a behavioral issue means the child can feel the signals, but it does not yet know how to manage it effectively.
Emotion matching. Activities that match emotions with internal sensations can help individuals correlate how their internal sensation relate to outward expressions. This can be done through games or exercises that link emotions to body sensations. Yoga. Practicing yoga can encourage attention on the present and internal sensations, providing vestibular and proprioceptive input that is useful in integrating the interoceptive system. Temperature regulation. Engaging in exercises that help with temperature regulation can assist individuals in understanding how to dress appropriately and respond to changes in the weather. Feeling emotions. Talking about and learning how different emotions feel can aid in cultivating interoceptive awareness. This can be done through discussions, tracking emotions, and learning how they correlate with internal sensations. The sensory gym will be revamped this year to become a sensory regulation station, providing therapy equipment and sensory tools to calm and organize a dysregulated child. Sensory regulation is referred to as the brain's ability to process and respond appropriately to sensory stimuli from the environment, allowing individuals to navigate their surroundings effectively, maintaining focus and emotional stability. Effective sensory regulation is crucial for overall well-being and self-regulation. It influences our ability to manage attention, emotional responses, and behavior. When sensory needs are met, individuals can perform better in various settings, engage more fully in daily life. Conversely, when sensory regulation is disrupted, it can lead to challenges such as sensory overload, anxiety, and difficulty focusing. The goal of the sensory regulation station is to help the child reach a calm and alert state for learning. A calm and alert state is described as the optimal level of arousal for learning, where individuals are ready to engage and process information effectively. This state is important for self-regulation and can be influenced by sensory processing. Therapy equipment in the sensory station will be used mainly to calm and organize a child if they are experiencing a dysregulation of their sensory systems. The child must be supervised at all times when using the therapy equipment to ensure that the child is calming down if coming from a heightened state of dysregulation. For example, using the swing to calm by using slow and more rhythmic and linear movements, and using the steam roller to provide deep pressure input to calm the child. Other environments at life that could be utilized to calm and organize are the outdoor spaces, such as the sports court, sidewalks, breezeways, outdoor playground, or the green belt. Examples of calming and organizing activities are deep pressure walks, bike and trike riding, climbing playground structures, and playing organized gross motor activities at the sports court. A sensory diet is a personalized plan of activities designed to provide the right type and amount of sensory input to help individuals regulate their sensory needs and improve their overall functioning. It can be individualized for a client based on their sensory needs, focus on helping them calm and stay organized throughout the day. A good sensory diet should be specific, offering specific sensory input at times in preparation for periods of poor regulation, in which the individual has a bank of sensory strategies at their disposal and can use those tools in preparation before a meltdown occurs. It should also be individualized, as no two individuals are alike, and no two individuals will experience the same sensory needs. As a result, every sensory diet will differ in sensory input, timing, and various other factors, providing appropriate sensory input based on the needs of an individual. A classroom can also have a specific sensory diet, individualized based on the sensory needs of the classroom, as identified by the teacher and staff, OT, or other persons trained in sensory integration. For example, the classroom can go for walks before table time or before meal times, have built-in movement breaks, have access to sensory tools such as fidget tools, specialized seating, weighted lap pads or vests, chewing tools, to name a few. Safety first. Lastly, and most importantly, always supervise the child when engaged in a sensory tool or activity and know to watch out for signs of sensory dysregulation. Most of our kids have sensory processing disorder, which means that they are not capable of regulating their sensory systems on their own. What is meant to be calming could easily bring them to a fight or flight state if left unsupervised. For example, a child left to swing on their own in a calming swing ends up spinning themselves and swinging erratically, making them hyperactive rather than calm in just a matter of minutes. In worse cases, the child ends up getting dizzy and throws up in addition, causing this child's system to be so dysregulated that it takes the whole rest of the day just to calm the child back. Other signs of dysregulation and sensory overload may look like the following: irritability with outbursts, crying, yelling, unfocused, shut down, dilated pupils, pale face, hyperactivity, running away, fighting, other fight or flight symptoms, sweating, to name a few. The staff can support sensory needs by observing patterns of sensory responses, such as overresponsiveness or underresponsiveness to different sensory inputs, by reducing sensory overload in the classrooms, for example, decreasing clutter and having designated and clearly marked stations to create an organized environment, by reducing noise levels and teaching kids to modulate noise volume using visuals and volume counters, by providing appropriate sensory input needed to calm and organize the dysregulated child, ensuring that each classroom has the sensory tools and activities needed to provide sensory regulation throughout the day. And lastly, by communicating and collaborating with your occupational therapist or the occupational therapy team or staff that may have training in sensory integration. Sensory needs vary by student and by day. No two individuals are alike, and no two individuals will experience the same sensory needs. That is why a sensory diet is individualized, as individuals experience and respond to sensory stimuli differently. What works for Johnny may not work for Julie. One sensory meltdown or overload can come from different sensory systems. It is important to know the child's sensory responses to each sensory system, whether it is over-responsive or under-responsive to the sensory stimuli, so accurate sensory strategies can be utilized and a more effective sensory diet can be created. Sensory regulation comes before learning. A child in a calm and alert state is ready for learning. This state of optimal learning can be achieved through sensory regulation, when the brain is able to process and respond to sensory stimuli in the environment accurately. Sensory responses are neurological and involuntary, resulting from feeling overwhelmed by the sensory stimuli present in the environment. Understanding the distinction between sensory and behavioral responses is crucial for effective intervention. Misidentifying the root cause can lead to inappropriate strategies that fail to address the child's actual needs. For instance, a child exhibiting sensory overload may require a sensory-friendly environment rather than a behavioral correction. When we meet sensory needs, we can reduce some challenging behaviors. Sensory responses, especially those that put a child in a fight or flight mode, can present as challenging behaviors. Calming the child and bringing them out of the fight mode can decrease these challenging sensory responses. It is so important to know your child and know how they respond to sensory stimuli in their environment, so we can be proactive in creating sensory regulating environments that promote learning and overall well-being.